For 7 years, Clara Bennett had worked the evening shift at Ravenswood Public Library, a quiet brick building at the edge of town. Most nights were predictable. Students whispered over textbooks, elderly visitors browsed the history section, and by 9 o'clock, the library emptied into silence. Clara liked the silence. It was one of the reasons she had taken the job. On a cold Thursday evening in October, heavy rain drummed against the library windows as Clara pushed a cart of returned books through the archive room in the basement. The archive was closed to the public. Rows of towering shelves stretched into the darkness, packed with old newspapers, forgotten manuscripts, and books nobody had checked out in decades. She was halfway through sorting the returns when the lights flickered. Clara looked up. The bulb above her buzzed, dimmed for a second, then returned to normal. She sighed and continued working. Then she noticed something strange. At the very end of the room, where the history shelves ended, a narrow aisle stood where she was certain there had only been a wall. Frowning, Clara wheeled the cart closer. A wooden bookshelf covered in dust blocked most of the passage, but a small opening led beyond it. She had worked in the library for years. She had never seen that aisle before. Curiosity got the better of her. Clara squeezed through the gap and found herself in a tiny room no larger than a storage closet. The air smelled of dust and old paper. There was no furniture, no windows, only a single wooden pedestal standing in the center of the room. And on it rested a book. Its black leather cover was cracked with age. There was no title, no author's name, and no library sticker. Just a silver symbol she didn't recognize. Carefully, Clara opened it. The first pages were blank. Then she turned to the middle. Written in neat handwriting was a list of names. She recognized one immediately. Ethan Moore. 3 weeks earlier, the 17-year-old had disappeared on his way home from school. The entire town had searched for him. He was still missing. Clara's stomach tightened. She turned another page. More names. Some belonged to people who had vanished years ago. Others belonged to people she knew. Then she froze. At the bottom of the last page, fresh ink seemed to spread across the paper. Slowly, letters appeared as if an invisible hand were writing them. Megan Carter. Clara stared at the name in horror. Megan Carter was not missing. She was sitting upstairs at that very moment, studying for her university exams. The library's old clock struck 9. Above her, she heard the sound of a chair scraping across the floor. Then a scream echoed through the building. Clara dropped the book and ran upstairs. The study table near the window was empty. Megan's backpack lay open on the floor. Her laptop screen still glowed. But Megan Carter was gone. And resting on the desk was a small piece of paper. Written in the same handwriting as the mysterious book were 4 words. She was only first. The police arrived at Ravenswood Public Library within minutes. Officers searched every floor, every restroom, and every exit, but Megan Carter had vanished without a trace. No one had seen her leave. No security cameras captured her walking out. It was as if she had simply disappeared. Detective Ryan Hale, who had led the investigation into Ethan Moore's disappearance, questioned Clara for nearly an hour. "You expect me to believe you found a secret room in the basement?" he asked. Clara hesitated. The black book sat wrapped in her coat on the passenger seat of her car. She had told no one about it. "I know it sounds impossible," she said carefully, "but something happened down there." Ryan rubbed his temples. 2 disappearances in a month. The entire town is already panicking. As the officers packed up their equipment, Clara returned to the basement. The hidden room was still there. The wooden pedestal stood exactly where she had left it. But the book was gone. Her heart pounded. Then she noticed something scratched into the wood. "Look for the keeper." The next morning, Clara arrived early and headed straight for the library archives. She searched through old newspapers and employee records dating back decades. Hours passed. Then she found something. A newspaper clipping from 1987. Local librarian vanishes during night shift. The article described the disappearance of Margaret Whitmore, the library's head archivist. She had worked alone one evening and was never seen again. Clara studied the photograph attached to the article. Margaret stood beside an enormous bookshelf, and on the shelf behind her sat the same black book. Clara's hands began to shake. She hurried to the front desk and found Arthur Collins, the library's oldest employee. Arthur had worked there for more than 40 years. The moment Clara mentioned Margaret Whitmore, his face turned pale. "You found the room, didn't you?" he whispered. Clara stared at him. "You know about it?" Arthur glanced around to make sure no one could hear. "Every 20 years the book chooses someone." "Chooses them for what?" He lowered his voice. "To keep the names." Before Clara could ask another question, Arthur suddenly stopped speaking. His eyes had fixed on something behind her. Clara turned. A young man sat alone in the reading section. He wore an old gray coat, rain dripping from his hair. Clara recognized him instantly. It was Ethan Moore, the missing teenager. She rushed toward him. "Ethan!" The boy slowly looked up. His face was pale, confused. "How do you know my name?" he asked. Clara stopped. "What do you mean?" Ethan frowned. "I've never seen you before." Detective Ryan Hale arrived 20 minutes later, but by the time the police entered the library, Ethan had disappeared again. All that remained was the book. It sat in the middle of the reading table, open, waiting. Clara stepped closer. A fresh page had appeared. Only one name was written there. She felt the blood drain from her face. The name was hers. Clara Bennett.